Part 59. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 581. Although Guojia does look less than 20 years old now, he was born hundreds of years earlier than Sumogong. If Sumogong knew that Guojia was hundreds of years older than him based on the time of his birth, he would probably kneel down and become his disciple on the spot. But at this time, Sumogong looked at Guojia's confident smile, feeling as if everything was under his control, and couldn't help but be even more shocked. Just like what Guojia just said, although there are not many 30,000 people staying in Tsadeo Mountain, they are hiding on the hillside and can only shoot arrows and throw stones into the valley without showing their faces. Naturally, the soldiers of the Tang dynasty will know how many people are ambushed on the mountain. After all, the main purpose of the Tang army coming this way was not to attack Chang'an directly, but to try their best to hold back the Dragon Kingdom soldiers ambushing on the hillside to prevent them from interfering with the army returning to Chang'an on the other side. Therefore, even if they discovered an ambush on the hillside, they would not launch an attack rashly, but would try to form a stalemate. In this way, they would not be able to confirm the number of people on the hillside, and fell into Guojia's plan again. Sumogong looked at Guojia's leaving figure and couldn't help but sigh. At this time, he was completely impressed by Guojia's intelligence. At the same time, he was even more curious. What charm did the Dragon Emperor have to attract such a group of people to his subordinates? 2 flowers bloomed, one on each side. But at this time, in the Longguo military camp outside Lucas City, Lu Feng said to Zhao Yun, Zhang Liao and other generals, Feng Xiao just sent someone back to report that they had feigned an attack on Chang'an before. Li Jiancheng already known. Then he ordered Sumogong to quickly support Chang'an with 500,000 yuan. As a result, Feng Xiao used the strategy of encircling a point for reinforcements and ambushed Sumogong halfway, killing more than 300,000 people. 100,000 people escaped, and the remaining 100,000 people together with Sumogong, he was captured when. Lu Feng said this, he paused for a moment and then said Chang'an has a special geographical location. It is the capital of the Tang dynasty. Li Jiancheng will not abandon it and will continue to send troops back. This is our opportunity to break the city. After Lu Feng finished speaking, everyone was not less surprised. After all, based on their understanding of Guojia, no matter how powerful his opponent was, he could come up with various strategies to defeat him, so they came the fight with Li Jiancheng was even more exciting. But Wang Bodang was different. He and Sumogong were both one of the 36 friends of Wei Gong, and they knew each other very well. Although he himself was also the top scholar in literature and could be said to be wise and courageous, he still admired Sumogong's resourcefulness very much. Although the current civil servants of Li Tang are headed by Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui, who are collectively known as Fang Mao Duduan and have strong talents in marching, fighting and government affairs, in terms of military, they are also weak. I dare not say that I can defeat Sumogong 100%. After all, the name Little Zuch was not for nothing. Therefore, when Wang Bodang learned that not only did Sumogong lead his army to defeat Guojia, but he himself was captured, he was extremely surprised. He did not expect that Guo Fengxiao is so powerful. Wang Bodang was still surprised by Sumogong's defeat, but Lu Feng didn't stop for a moment and directly announced the personnel deployment for the subsequent siege. Feng Xian, Hans Hung, you two are together, he said to the generals. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 582. The rest of the people, order your troops and horses, and join me in attacking the south gate. We must capture Luca today. I obey the order. After Lu Feng finished speaking, the soldiers immediately took the order and left. Lu Feng took 5 generals, Dian Wei, Zhao Yun, Zhang Liao, Zhang He and Su Huang, as well as Li Yuanba and Li Ziyuning, and left the camp again to send troops to the south gate of Lucca. 2. According to the art of war, when a large army attacks a city and wants to quickly defeat the opponent and conquer the city at the minimum cost, the best way is to adopt the strategy of encircling 3 columns and 1. The so-called encircling 3 columns and 1 means attacking the city. At that time, the 3 gates of the city were besieged, and 1 gate was left as a way out. Instead of sending troops to attack, they only sent troops to ambush within a few miles outside the city. In this way, when the 3 besieged gates were in a bitter battle, all the city defenders will have a way out. They know that the vacant city gate is a way out. If they can't resist it, they can evacuate through that gate. Although there will definitely be an ambush outside the city gate, as long as they run away if you move fast enough, you can escape death, so in order to escape, the soldiers defending the city will not try their best in defense. As long as the attacking party's offensive is slightly fiercer, the defenders will definitely want to retreat, and there will never be an offensive escape from that city gate and then capture the city more easily. As for the fleeing defenders, they will also be surrounded by ambushes outside the city. However, if all 4 city gates are surrounded, there is no hope of defending the city. If the city is lost, you will not be able to escape. However, if one dies, a strong sense of resistance will inevitably erupt in a desperate situation, so the resistance will naturally be greater. This is exactly what Sun Tzu said about attacking the heart for the top and the bottom. However, this solution of surrounding 3 buildings is obviously not suitable for the siege of the Dragon Kingdom at this time, because their troops are not enough to launch an attack from 3 city gates, so they can only concentrate their troops to attack 1 gate. However, with the combat effectiveness of the dragon warriors and other troops, I would like to think that it is not difficult to attack the city wall, not to mention that there are monsters like Li Yuanba in the Dragon Kingdom's formation. The pair of sledgehammers in his hands are almost unstoppable. In addition, Wang Bodang, who has just surrendered, has also been incorporated into the army. Among Huang Zhong's longbowmen, he was impressed by Huang Zhong's archery skills, so he was willing to start as an ordinary longbowman. However, with Wang Bodang's archery skills, whether Huang Zhong neither Lu Feng nor Lu Feng could be so overqualified and let the famous white-robed divine arrow serve as a small soldier. Therefore, after Huang Zhong asked Lu Feng for instructions, he appointed Wang Bodang as his deputy general. At this time, on the wall of Lucca City, when Li Jiancheng saw the Dragon Kingdom's army finally attacking, he was quite excited. After all, the reason why he gave up the field battle was because the combat effectiveness of the Dragon Kingdom soldiers was too strong. Therefore, he would naturally not take the initiative to send troops out of the city to fight at this time. Just wanted to use the power of the city wall to allow the Dragon Kingdom army to attack the city, and at the same time arranged all the archers on the top of the city to take turns shooting. Although the range and power of the Tang army's archers were far inferior to the longbowmen, they still posed a certain threat after all. So Lu Feng was not in a hurry to command the entire army to attack, but said to Li Yuanba, I give you a task, go and break open the city gate for me. Filu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share, comma. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 583. For Li Yuanba, fighting in a higher level is his happiest thing, especially now that the war is to avenge his second brother, so he said even more excitedly, brother-in-law, your majesty is waiting. Lita Euro trademark S watch Yuanba Euro trademark S show. After Li Yuanba finished speaking, he lightly patted Wan Liun on his crotch, then rushed forward with a pair of drums, urns, and golden hammers, and while running quickly, he waved the hammers and all the bows and arrows shot at him were shot away. The distance of more than 100 steps was reached almost instantly, and then he swung the drum, urn, and golden hammer, hammered 3 times in succession, and smashed open the heavy Lucca city gate. For Li Yuanba, breaking open a mere city gate in Lucca is no big deal. After all, when he, Li Yuan and Li Yuanji attacked Wang Shishang in Luoyang that day, even the tall and strong city gates in Luoyang were broken open by him with a few hammers. Although Li Jiancheng had heard about this, he had not seen it with his own eyes, so he naturally did not believe it. Therefore, he still wanted to use the city wall to block the Dragon Kingdom army, but he did not expect that this method would not work at all. Li Yuanji, who was next to Li Jiancheng, did not expect that when he and Li Yuanba attacked the various eastern princes on behalf of the Tang dynasty, Li Yuanba often used such violent means to blast away the cities of those princes, and now it was his turn. The situation was really changing, 30 years in Hedong and 30 years in Hexi. At this time, he even complained that Li Jiancheng insisted on letting him plot to kill Li Yuanba, but in the end he was forced into the Dragon Kingdom camp. Moreover, Li Jiancheng killed Li Shimin, and he almost killed Li Yuanba. Then Li Yuanba must hate him more than Li Jiancheng. When he comes to kill the city wall, he will be the first to hit him. Li Jiancheng was naturally afraid of Li Yuanba. Li Yuanba was charging towards the city wall and he immediately shouted, "Pei Yuanqing, go and stop Li Yuanba. Don't let him come up." Pei Yuanqing was the one he was specially designed to deal with. When Li Yuanba rushed towards the door alone, Li Jiancheng had already guessed his purpose and specifically asked the archers to shoot at Li Yuanba, but still failed to stop him. "As you command, Your Majesty." Pei Yuanqing received Li Jiancheng's order and immediately walked down the city wall with a pair of 8-edged plum blossom silver hammers to look for Li Yuanba. Pei Yuanqing had already heard about Li Yuanba's reputation. It was said that he was the golden-winged one. Daipen was reincarnated. Although he was only a teenager, his arms had the power of 4 elephants, and a pair of drums, urns, and golden hammers were unrivaled. Pei Yuanqing happened to be in his teens, and was also known as the reincarnation of Neza. He is also extremely powerful, and his weapons are also a pair of sledgehammers. He has never met an opponent before, so he has long wanted to compete with Li Yuanba. Last time Li Jiancheng ordered him to stop Li Yuanba outside the city, the result has not been when he found the person, he was attracted by the archery duel between Huang Zhong and Wang Bodang. Neither he nor Li Yuanba forgot to attack the other party. Later, after Wang Bodang was defeated by Huang Zhong with a 5-star combo, the armies of the two sides started fighting directly. Pei Yuanqing was also entangled by several generals from the Dragon Kingdom, and did not fight with Li Yuanba. At this time, only Li Yuanba came to the other party, and Pei Yuanqing was naturally overjoyed. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Phila Novel app, 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 584. As soon as I got off the city wall, I saw Li Yuanba at the city gate, who was constantly wielding a double hammer to fight among Li Tang's army, so he shouted, "Li Yuanba, look at the hammer." After shouting after that, he rushed over as fast as he could and hit Li Yuanba with the hammer. When Li Yuanba heard someone calling him, he turned around and saw Pei Yuanqing, who was also holding a pair of war hammers as weapons, rushing toward him. Pei Yuanqing was only 2 or 3 years older than Li Yuanba, and he couldn't tell from his appearance. So when he saw a man of his own age coming to kill him, Li Yuanba grinned, picked up the drum, urn, and golden hammer, and rushed towards him. Boom! With a loud noise, the two men's sledgehammers hit each other hard. The huge sound made the Tang army soldiers beside them all unsteady, and even those who were close were shocked to the point where their ears bleed. It turned out that Pei Yuanqing has never met an opponent in terms of strength, and when fighting against others, he only needs to use half of his strength to easily defeat his opponent. Even when Qin Kayang fought against him, he only blocked Qin Kayang's attack. Being able to shock Qin Kayang's hands until the tiger's mouth cracked and bleeds is enough to illustrate his terrifying advantage in strength. However, what Pei Yuanqing did not expect was that his silver hammer suddenly bounced back after this blow, and bounced back with it. There was also a terrifying force that made his hands numb. This was an experience he had never experienced before, and his expression suddenly changed. Li Yuanba did not expect that this young man who seemed to be about the same age as himself could catch him. After a blow, he suddenly became excited and shouted, "Come again." Then, Li Yuanba swung his hammers and hit them again, but Pei Yuanqing couldn't avoid it. He was a young man and would admit defeat after a fight. Naturally, he gritted his teeth and took the two hammers forcefully in the future. However, after two hammer blows, Pei Yuanqing was shaken back several steps, not even his men or horses. When Li Yuanba saw this, he suddenly said with surprise, "Good brother, except for your majesty, no one has ever been able to take the responsibility." He could hit Yuanba 3 times without getting hurt, but even after 3 strikes, he couldn't stand up. If you have such martial arts skills, don't follow Li Jiancheng. He even killed his own brother and wanted to kill his own sister. There is no future with him. From now on, just follow Yuanba. Li Yuanba was overjoyed that Pei Yuanqing could handle his 3 hammers. In addition, the two of them were about the same age and both used hammers, so Li Yuanba actually wanted to accept Pei Yuanqing as his younger brother. But how could Pei Yuanqing give someone younger than him, and he didn't look like a very smart man as his younger brother, and when he saw that the Dragon Emperor had brought people to kill him, he immediately turned around and ran away. However, although Pei Yuanqing's Mount Yezhao Jade Lion is also a top war horse, compared to Li Yuanba's Wan Liun was still a little bit behind, and he was chased by Li Yuanba as soon as he ran less than 50 steps. Then without saying a word, Li Yuanba hit Pei Yuanqing with 2 hammers, and Pei Yuanqing had no choice but to raise his arms again. The hammer blocked. As a result, when the 2 hammers fell, Pei Yuanqing, whose arms were already numb and a little weak, could no longer hold on, and almost flew out of his hands. At the same time, Li Yuanba raised the big hammer again. Hammer_feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share, 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 585. I just heard Li Yuanba say, "Good brother, if you don't agree to Yuanba, Yuanba will kill you." Faced with Li Yuanba's threat, Pei Yuanqing didn't have to think for too long. After all, he only followed Qin Kaiyan to join the Tang dynasty. He himself did not have much loyalty to the Tang dynasty. Moreover, although he is highly skilled in martial arts, he is still just a teenager after all. Facing the threat from Li Yuanba, he is still unwilling to die like this. Serving someone is not a service. At least it is good to be friends with Li Yuanba. So as soon as Li Yuanba finished speaking, Pei Yuanqing threw the 8-edged plum blossom silver hammer to the ground, and then said, okay, I will just follow you from now on." Seeing that Pei Yuanqing agreed to follow him, Li Yuanba immediately revealed his with the character of a child. He clapped his hands and said, "Great, great. Just now Huang Zhong got Wang Bo as his deputy, and now Yuanba also has a deputy." After saying that, Li Yuanba came up and took Pei Yuanqing's hand again, and he said to him, "Let's go, let me take you to see His Majesty. His Majesty will definitely like you very much if he knows your power." After saying that, regardless of whether Pei Yuanqing was willing or not, Li Yuanba pulled him to Lu Feng. And said to Lu Feng, "Your Majesty, this boy can catch Yuanba's 5 hammers, and he is also a very powerful person. Can you also let him be my deputy general?" After Li Yuanba finished speaking, he looked at him expectantly. Lu Feng, if in the past, Li Yuanba only listened to Li Shimin, he would only ask Li Shimin about this kind of thing. As for others, he would not consider it. But now that Li Shimin has been replaced by Li Jiancheng, Li Yuanba has one less person who can help him with advice. Not only did Lu Feng have higher martial arts and strength than him, but he also saved his life. In addition, he would soon be his brother-in-law. In Li Yuanba's heart, Lu Feng occupied the original position of Li. That's why now he came to Li Shimin to discuss and get his consent. And Li Yuanba was also very scared. If he didn't tell Lu Feng, and Lu Feng still refused to let Pei Yuanqing be his general, wouldn't he be in a big loss if he shot Pei to death one day when he wasn't around? Lu Feng had actually noticed the fight between Li Yuanba and Li Yuanba for a long time. He knew that Pei Yuanqing was the only one in the world who could withstand Li Yuanba's 5 blows. Although Pei Yuanqing is still a bit immature with his current strength, Lu Feng still welcomes the opportunity to have one more half-step of the Infinity War to serve him. So Lu Feng didn't think much about it, and immediately nodded to Li Yuanba and said Pei Yuanqing has a pair of silver hammers in his hands. Now in this world, except for you, there is no one who can beat him. If you can convince him to be your deputy, I won't object. After listening to Lu Feng's words, Li Yuanba suddenly smiled and said, brother-in-law of the emperor, Pei Yuanqing has already agreed. As long as you agree, he will be Yuanba's deputy general. Hey, wait a minute, brother-in-law of the emperor, Yuanba has not either tell you his name, and Yuanba himself doesn't a Euro trademark T know that his name is Pei Yuanqing, how do you know? After Li Yuanba finished speaking, Pei Yuanqing also looked at Lu Feng with a puzzled look, and Lu Feng accurately said his name. When he saw it, he was a little surprised, but as a surrender general, he didn't say it out loud. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Phila Novel app. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 586. Now that Li Yuanba asked for himself, he naturally wanted to listen. However, Lu Feng did not explain seriously, but just pretended to be profound and said, I know all the famous civil servants and military generals in the world, let alone Pei Yuanqing, who can be ranked the 3rd best man in the world. After Lu Feng finished speaking, for in order to prevent him from continuing to dwell on this issue, he changed the subject and said, Yuanba, I have decided to make you the great general of the Divine Hammer, and allow you to form a Divine Hammer battalion. From now on, as long as you are a general who uses a hammer as a weapon, as long as if you can convince him, you can bring him to see me, and then join your hammer camp and obey your command. Li Yuanba is indeed a child at heart. When Lu Feng said that he could form a hammer camp, he immediately reported Pei Yuanqing's incident, putting it behind him. He said happily, thank you, Your Majesty. This time Yuanba can also be a general and command a team of troops. This is much better than being the king of Zhao under Li Jiancheng. Yuanba also likes the name Shen Hammer Camp. ETA Euro trademark S very impressive when I hear it. Brother-in-law of the emperor, you are so kind. Li Yuanba also changed his name to Lu Feng at will. When he thanked him, he called him Your Majesty, and when he usually wanted to please him, he called him brother-in-law, which made Li Ziyuning standing aside several times. I couldn't help but want to pinch his face severely. However, Li Yuanba didn't care. He turned around and looked at Pei Yuanqing, who seemed unhappy, and said proudly, well, Yuanba said that His Majesty will definitely let you be Yuanba's deputy. Now Yuanba is the great hammer of God. General, and the entire Shen Hammer Battalion listens to Yuanba. From today on, Yuanba will make you the deputy general of the Shen Hammer Battalion. From now on, Yuanba will be the 2nd. Although Pei Yuanqing was completely convinced by Li Yuanba's power, but until now, he has always felt that this kid is not very smart and looks like a child. He originally thought that after surrendering to the Dragon Kingdom with his own force, the Dragon Emperor would look high on him and give him some kind of general or lieutenant title, but he didn't expect that he would be appointed as a deputy general to this boy. Moreover, the Dragon Emperor actually asked Li Yuanba, a boy who was not easy to work with, to form some kind of Shenhamer camp and let him lead it. With his intelligence, could this Shenhamer camp still develop in the future? Your brother-in-law dotes on your brother-in-law and you just give him the title of General of God's Hammer for fun. I don't say anything if you ask him to form the God's Hammer Battalion. But this God's Hammer Battalion asked me to be the Deputy General. Under the leadership of this guy, I'm afraid my official position will come to an end in this life. It was precisely because of these thoughts that Pei Yuanqing became more depressed the more he thought about it, and the expression on his face seemed to have frozen. He was already upset about this, but when he heard Li Yuanba's show off, he became even more angry. So he glanced sideways at Li Yuanba, looked at Lu Feng, and said deliberately, "You are the boss, and I am the second child. Does that mean that your majesty will also listen to me when he goes to the hammer camp?" Li Ziyuning had already taken charge of Li Yuanba without permission. Lu Feng called his brother-in-law a little dissatisfied. When he heard that Pei Yuanqing deliberately dug a hole for him to embarrass him, he couldn't help laughing. When Li Yuanba heard what Pei Yuanqing said, he was at a loss. After thinking for a long time, he finally said, "Isn't His Majesty not in the hammer camp? If he comes, of course he will be the boss. Yuanba is the second child, and you are the youngest. Listen." After hearing Li Yuanba's words, Pei Yuanqing was stunned and said, "Shouldn't I be the third child? How come I became the youngest?" Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 587. Li Yuanba said very seriously, "There are only 2 of us in the hammer camp now, aren't you the youngest?" Pei Yuanqing originally wanted to make a joke to make Li Yuanba look embarrassed, but he didn't expect that although Li Yuanba was mentally intelligent it wasn't very good, but the reaction was quite quick, which made him look embarrassed, and the expression on his face suddenly became even more depressed. After hearing Li Yuanba's words, Li Ziyuning, who had been holding back laughter before, finally couldn't help laughing. Even Lu Feng was amused by the words of these 2 boys and shook his head with a smile. But after all, they were still on the battlefield at this time. The city gate had been breached and they were waiting to capture Li Jiancheng. Naturally, Lu Feng would not joke with them here, so he led his army to hunt down the Tang army. As for Li Ziyuning, this lady who formed the famous women's army in later history, although her military force was only at the level of a second-rate military general, there was no danger in using it when the Tang army fled in a hurry. Therefore, Lu Feng left 200 red-blooded dragon knights to follow Li Ziyuning to protect her safety, and at the same time, Li Ziyuning could command them to fight against Li Jianquan's men. As for Li Jiancheng, he was originally full of confidence in Pei Yuanqing and thought that Pei Yuanqing would be able to stop Li Yuanba. However, he did not expect that not only did he fail to stop Li Yuanba's attack, but he directly became Li Yuanba's younger brother after his defeat. In addition, the gate of Lucca City had been breached, and the Dragon Emperor and the generals of the Dragon Kingdom rushed in with hundreds of thousands of troops. Li Jiancheng knew that Lucca could not be defended, so he immediately ordered the soldiers to lead the army to attack. The north withdraws its troops. However, just as Li Jiancheng and a group of officials and generals from the Tang dynasty fled to the north gate, soldiers from the Tang army retreated from the north gate and reported to Li Jiancheng, "Your Majesty, something serious has happened. There are soldiers from the Dragon Kingdom at the north gate. The horse is in ambush, and it seems that they are dressed with the Bingzhou wolf cavalry led by him. Now the soldiers who rushed out first have been killed by Lu Buledin and others." Li Jiancheng heard this and hurriedly said, "Send the order." The army breaks out towards the east gate. However, they had just left, and before they even reached the east gate, Li Tang's vanguard army came to report, Your Majesty. There are also soldiers of the Dragon Kingdom ambushing outside the East Gate, led by Longbowman. In addition, Wang Bodang also among them. Li Jiancheng heard the soldier's words and gritted his teeth and said, Uncle Wang will treat this as a rip-off, and when he falls into my hands again, I will make sure that he cannot live or die. After finishing speaking, Li Jiancheng changed the topic and said to the soldier, Will you take someone to see if there is an ambush outside the West Gate? The soldier followed the order and came back not long after to say to Li Jiancheng, Your Majesty, there is no one at the West Gate. The Dragon Kingdom is ambushing its troops. Do you want to order the army to retreat from the West Gate? Li Jiancheng squinted his eyes and said nothing, while Fang Xianling said from the side, It seems that the Dragon Emperor is deliberately driving our army to the West Gate. Just go out from the West Gate. We can only go to the direction of Luoyang and Chang'an. If Guojiabi has captured Chang'an at this time, our army can only go to Luoyang. If Chang'an is not captured, they will definitely come with Lu Feng to attack our army from both sides. If this is the case, if so, our army's Chu River will be even more dangerous. Your Majesty, Lord Fang is right. After Fang Xianling finished speaking, Du Ruhui also added to read the underlined version of the novel. Please download the Filu novel app, Kamae. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 590. Looking up with Li Jiancheng, there were also the soldiers of the Tang dynasty. Among them, Li Jing carefully observed the figures on the hillsides on both sides. Suddenly he seemed to have discovered something. His eyes flashed, but then he lowered his head and said nothing. In addition to Li Jing, although Du Ruhui is also a fan of the authorities, he is also a top strategist after all, and he still has strong abilities in observation and planning. So after watching for a while, Du Ruhui suddenly came to Li Jiancheng, deliberately lowered his voice, and said in a voice that was small but could be heard by several important people around him, Your Majesty, I'm afraid we have fallen into a trap. I just made an observation. Although there are indeed ambushes on the slopes on both sides of the narrow mountain, the number of people is obviously not too many. However, according to previous intelligence, Guojia has 100,000 troops under his command, and here there are at most only 10,000 people. Therefore, I guess that Guojia must have guessed the tactic of dividing our army into two groups, and knew that our army's troops here were just to delay them. That's why he used his plan to divide our army into two groups. 100,000 troops are restrained here, and he must have reached Chang'an with the main army at this moment. How unreasonable! Li Jiancheng was furious after hearing Du Ruhui's analysis. He led his army to flee from Luka to Tsadao mountain. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. There was already a ball of anger in his heart that had nowhere to vent. At this time, it was like a gasoline barrel. Just do it. Du Ruhui has obviously seen this a long time ago, so he deliberately told the matter to let Li Jiancheng vent the anger in his heart. Otherwise, if there is another failure later, Jiancheng will be angry. With no place to vent, they, the counselors and strategists who followed Li Jiancheng to make suggestions, were bound to suffer. Just as Du Ruhui expected, after hearing his words, Cheng became furious on the spot, drew out the sword from his waist, and pointed at the general P and shouted loudly, You trash! As the commander-in-chief of an army of 100,000, you can't tell how many enemy troops there are. I asked you to hold Guojia here. You don't know where he is now. What use do I need you for? After Li Jiancheng finished speaking, before the general who was staying here could react, he cut off his head with a sword. Of course, Li Jiancheng himself didn't notice it, but the consecutive tragic defeats had made him unable to do anything. Keeping calm, he had reached the edge of the explosion long ago, and regarded this general as a punching bag. Du Ruhui looked at the body of the general with his head missing, and sighed in his heart. After all, he could not be blamed for this. it was all the enemy is too cunning. If he doesn't let Li Jiancheng explode now, he may be the unlucky one later. Who makes him just a small general? Then, Li Jiancheng pointed the sword in his hand to his opponent and ordered the whole army speeds up and rushes over. Subsequently, Li Jiancheng rushed out under the escort of Yu Qigong and others, followed closely by an army of 1.9 million. The Long Kingdom captives who were ambushing on the hillsides on both sides saw Li Jiancheng rushing over, and hurriedly prepared the troops in advance. The huge boulder was pushed down, and he fired all the bows and arrows he carried before retreating. After all the Tang troops rushed over, they counted the casualties again and found that more than 50,000 people were killed by boulders and bows and arrows. However, compared with the more than 1.8 million living soldiers, this number is nothing. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 591. After crossing the narrow passage, Li Jiancheng looked at the 1.8 million army behind him and sighed softly in his heart. He recalled that when the army set out from Chang'an not long ago, there were 3 soldiers. 1/3 of a million people were lost in just a few days. Although Feng Li and Shui Wanch took a detour to Chang'an with an army of 400,000, judging from the current situation, Guoqia and Ma Chao must have also led the 100,000 vanguard army of the Dragon Kingdom to Chang'an. According to Guoqia's resourcefulness, Ma Chao's force, and the terrifying combat effectiveness of the Dragon Kingdom's army, I am afraid that the soldiers and horses led by Feng Li will be in danger. Thinking of this, Li Jiancheng couldn't help but feel a little more lonely. He lowered his head and was about to continue on his way when Du Ruhui suddenly stood up and said to him, "Your Majesty, I have a plan that can kill the Dragon Emperor and his troops." Li Jiancheng heard this. Yan couldn't help but his eyes lit up. After experiencing so many defeats, he was even a little disheartened. When he heard Du Ruhui's words, he immediately felt like a person who had been living in darkness for several days suddenly saw the light. He hurriedly asked Du Iking, "What's the plan?" Du Ruhui also knew that Li Jiancheng didn't have much confidence in his heart at this time. If there was a way to defeat the Dragon Kingdom army, he would definitely take a high look. So Du Ruhui paused for a moment, carefully considered his words, and then said, "Your Majesty, since Guoqia arranged an ambush in Tsadao Mountain and almost wiped out Su Mogong's reinforcements, we can also treat him the same way he did. Now, Lu Feng is leading an army to pursue them, so why don't we follow Guoqia's example and set up ambushes on the hillsides on both sides? When their army arrives, they will also shoot down the huge army." Su Mao led the 500,000. The entire army was lost in such an ambush. Lu Feng only had a mere 200,000 troops. No matter how powerful their generals were, they would have no use in such a situation. To say the least, even with the extraordinary strength of Lu Feng and Li Yuanba, if we can use force to kill these ambushes on the hillside, it will definitely waste a lot of time and buy me more time to escape. After hearing Du Ruhui's plan, Li Jiancheng felt hope burn in his heart again. He was already giving up on himself, once again saw the opportunity to defeat the Dragon Kingdom. As long as Lu Feng's main army can be eliminated, especially Lu Feng himself, then Guoqia's 100,000 people will be like headless flies, no longer able to pose a threat to themselves. To be on the safe side, Li Jiancheng immediately arranged for 300,000 people to climb up the hillsides on both sides, and kept most of the bows and arrows. In addition, he quickly prepared boulders in order to deliver a fatal blow to Lu Feng. After the 300,000 troops were ambushed, Li Jiancheng quickly left with the remaining 155 troops and headed west to Chang'an. At this point, Li Jiancheng only had half of Li Tang's 3 million troops left in his hands. The 300,000 Li Tang soldiers who stayed behind, under the command of a general, quickly found ambush sites on the hillsides on both sides, and quickly hid themselves, waiting for the arrival of Lu Feng's main army. However, these 300,000 men and horses have been ambushing here, but they have never waited for the arrival of the Dragon Kingdom army. In fact, Lu Feng did lead the army and followed closely behind the Tang army at the beginning. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Philo Novel app. A. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 592. But after entering Luoyang, he changed his direction and led the army all the way north. Although Lu Feng has won every battle since he came to this world, even in the world of the Three Kingdoms, he has never been proud. He knew that the reason why he was able to win consecutive battles was because he had a sharp weapon like the job transfer hall in his hand, and the troops under his command had strong combat effectiveness. However, if he underestimated the enemy too much, he would eventually fail one day. Therefore, Lu Feng has been actively thinking about all issues regarding the situation on the battlefield. He knew clearly that since Guojia was able to use the terrain advantage of Tsadao Mountain to ambush Su Mogong's 500,000 strong army, then with the abilities of Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui, they would also be able to imitate Guojia's strategy and ambush him there. Lu Feng had a clear understanding of himself. He did not think that his soldiers and horses could block those huge rocks falling from the sky. At the same time, Guojia had brought an army of 100,000 to the outside of Chang'an City and was stationed 30 miles east of the city. Although Su Mogong had thought about being loyal to Li Tang when he was captured by Guojia and dying to prove his loyalty, his thoughts became active after he learned that Guojia had no intention of killing him. At this time, Su Mogong looked at Chang'an City not far away, and thought for a long time. Then he turned around and said to Guojia, Master Guo, the Chang'an City is high and deep. It is not easy to attack the city. Although I can't. He is a talented person, but he is quite familiar with Li Tang. Do you think you can let me lead a few people to trick the city gate into opening, and then work together to fight into the city? Guojia listened to Su Mogong's words and glanced lightly. Su Mogong said with a smile, but not a smile, Mr. Su, just stay with me as the vanguard, and don't think about other things. I think you don't want to help us attack the city, but you want to find a way to enter Chang'an and organize the Chang'an garrison to resist our attack, right? It's no wonder that Guojia doesn't believe in Su Mogong. Along the way, Su Mogong came up with several strategies for Guojia. These strategies are all clever tricks that can bring a lot of benefits to the Dragon Kingdom army or achieve a great victory. But if you can use your heart, after thinking about it, you can find that these so-called clever tricks are just traps set by Su Mogong for Guojia. As long as Guojia follows his method, the situation will inevitably be reversed. It can be seen that although Su Mogong was loyal at first, however, he was not foolishly loyal to Li Shimin. On the contrary, he was very adaptable. After Li Shimin's death, he still thought of the Tang dynasty. However, Guojia was not a fledgling boy. On the contrary, he himself had extremely high abilities. His intelligence, and his grasp of people's hearts are far beyond ordinary people. How could he be fooled by Su Mogong? As for Su Mogong, he made several suggestions to Guojia along the way, but they were not adopted, and he was even directly exposed by Guojia. Having discovered his plot, he was no longer surprised or embarrassed by Guojia's rejection. However, he could only smile bitterly in response to Guojia's answer. At the same time, he thought that this young man who seemed to be only 17 or 18 years old was actually like this. Lao Lao La is even more cunning than himself. In short, it seems impossible to deceive him like this. Fei. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share.